Hello and welcome to another edition of the Ryland Report.
And I'm Claire Ryland. It is great to be back with you.
You know, walking into the studio today, I had this really weird moment.
Oh, yeah.
I reached for the door handle, and for just a split second, I swear my hand, it just sort of clipped through reality. Like the texture hadn't fully loaded yet.
I think that's called fumbling your keys, or, maybe you just needed that second cup of coffee.
See, that's the rational take.
Yeah.
But what I felt was, it was that glitch in the matrix feeling, that little nagging suspicion that this world, this desk, these mics, that maybe it's not all as solid as we think.
And that's where we're going today, isn't it?
Exactly. We are diving deep into one of the most provocative ideas out there, the simulation hypothesis.
And it feels like sci-fi, but when you actually look at the research we have here, we're talking papers from nuclear physicists, arguments from Oxford philosophers.
Yeah.
It stops being a movie plot. It starts looking like a real statistical puzzle.
It's the big question. Is this all real, or is it just .code? Are we living inside some vast computer simulation? And I guess if we are, does it even matter?
Well, before we get into the terrifying math, I think we should ground this a bit. Because everyone thinks of the 1999 movie The Matrix. But this anxiety, this doubt about reality, it's ancient. We've been worrying about this for thousands of years.
It definitely didn't start with Keanu Reeves.
Not at all. You can go all the way back to 4th century BC China. The philosopher Zhuangzi.
The butterfly dream.
Exactly. He dreams he's a butterfly just fluttering around, happy, completely unaware he's a man. Then he wakes up.
And he's unmistakably Zhuangzi.
Yeah. But then he asks that question that people are still arguing about. Was I a man who dreamt I was a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming I'm a man?
That blurring of the line.
Yeah.
It's the whole issue right there.
It is. And in the West, you have Plato's allegory of the cave, the prisoner seeing only shadows. And much later, René Descartes comes up with his evil demon idea.
Right, that some malicious force is just feeding us all our sensory information. A total deception.
And the only thing he could prove was his own mind. I think, therefore I am.
But here's the modern twist, right? In the last 50 years or so, we've swapped out the evil demon for a system administrator.
We moved from magic to mechanics. Exactly.
It really kicks off with Konrad Zuse in 1969. His book, Calculating Space, basically proposed that the universe is, at its core, a computer, digital physics.
And then you get guys like Hans Moravec talking about mind uploading, and the whole idea shifts from, is this a dream, to, is this a program?
So our mission today is to explore that, the logic, the physics, and what it all means.
And I'm going to try and keep your feet on the ground because I know you want to believe we're in a video game.
I'm just following the statistics.
Yeah.
So let's start with the logic. The bedrock for this whole debate is a 2003 paper by the philosopher Nick Bostrom.
Are you living in a computer simulation?
Yeah, this is the paper that took it from just, a cool thought experiment to actual probability theory. Exactly. Bostrom doesn't just say, maybe. He proposes a trilemma.
Yeah.
He says, logically, one of these three things has to be true.
Okay, let's break them down.
So proposition number one, extinction. This says that the fraction of civilizations that get to a post-human stage, a stage where they could run these ancestor simulations.
He's basically zero.
Right. They destroy themselves first, nuclear war, climate collapse, an asteroid hits. Whatever it is, they just don't get there.
Okay, that's a cheerful option. What's number two?
Number two is apathy. This one says that post-human civilizations do exist. They have the godlike tech, but they just choose not to run these simulations.
For what? Moral reasons? Or they're just not interested?
Could be either. Maybe it's illegal. Maybe simulating conscious beings is seen as a crime. Or maybe they're just, bored by their ancestors. They've moved on.
Which brings us to number three, the one you're worried about.
Proposition 3, the simulation. If civilizations don't usually go extinct, and if they're interested in running simulations of their past, then, then the number of simulated realities would just explode.
It would vastly outnumber the one single base reality.
Yes, and this is the statistical trap. If one advanced civilization runs, say, 1 million simulations of their own history, then for every one real person, there are 1 million simulated people.
And we have no way of knowing which one we are.
Exactly. So just based on pure probability, it is overwhelmingly likely that you are one of the simulated minds, not one of the originals. We are the Sims.
Okay, hold on. Let me pump the brakes on your existential crisis for a second. Bostrom's argument is, I agree, logically sound, but it rests on a huge assumption. It's called computationalism.
The idea that consciousness itself can be computed.
You don't think it can? I'm saying we don't know that it can. It assumes that if you just have enough processing power and complex enough code, you get a subjective experience, what philosophers call qualia, the actual feeling of redness or the taste of coffee.
But look at how fast AI is advancing. It's writing poetry, it's creating art.
It's mimicking those things. But if consciousness needs a biological brain, if it's wetware and not something you can code into hardware, then Bostrom's math just falls apart. You could simulate a person who acts perfectly real, but if there's no light on inside, no actual conscious experience.
The philosophical zombie.
Right. Then we aren't Sims, we're just us. And the simulation argument doesn't work because the simulated people aren't actually people.
Fair point. A big if. But let's move from philosophy to something harder. Physics.
Yeah.
Can we actually, test for this? Can we find the code?
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Because if we are in a computer, there ought to be some artifacts, some limitations in the system.
Exactly. And in 2012, 3 physicists, Silas Bean, Zora Devoti, and Martin Savage, they published a paper suggesting a way to look for the pixels of reality.
The cosmic ray test.
Right. The logic is that any simulation, no matter how powerful, has to cut corners to save resources. And one way to do that is to put space-time on a grid or a lattice.
Like the pixels on a screen, but for the whole universe.
Exactly. The computer can't calculate an infinite number of points. It has to discretize things. And they argued that this grid would have a noticeable effect.
How so?
Well, they predicted that we'd see an anisotropy, the directionality, in how ultra-high-energy cosmic rays travel through space. Basically, they'd move differently along the lines of the grid versus diagonally across it.
So we could literally see the jagged edges of space-time.
We could see the pixelation. It would be hard proof.
It's a brilliant idea, but we have to talk about the counter-arguments from other physicists because they are pretty substantial.
I know you've got them ready. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's start with the Nobel laureate Frank Wilczek. His objection is about complexity. He says, if you look at the laws of our universe, they are full of all this hidden, messy complexity that doesn't seem to be used for anything.
Like quantum mechanics working perfectly, even when no one is looking.
Even deeper than that. The laws are constrained by time and location in ways that are just incredibly resource-intensive to simulate, but they don't add anything to our day-to-day experience. His question is, why would a programmer waste so much processing power?
I don't know, maybe the programmer's a perfectionist.
Or maybe it's just a natural, messy universe, not an optimized piece of code. I mean, you also have physicists like Sabine Hossenfelder who goes further. She calls the whole thing pseudoscience.
That feels a little harsh.
Well, her point is about what makes something science. If a theory is unfalsifiable, right, if every time we fail to find the grid, you can just say, oh, well, the computer must be too advanced to have a grid, then it's not science anymore.
It's a faith-based argument.
Exactly. It becomes more like a religion. You can't disprove it, so it's not a useful theory.
I see the point. But the idea that it's impracticable today doesn't mean it's impossible forever, which brings us to the tech moguls.
You mean Elon Musk?
I mean Elon Musk. His argument is the one that really seems to convince people because it's so intuitive. He just points to video games.
The Pong argument.
Yes. Think about it. 50 years ago, we had Pong. 2 rectangles and a dot. That was the cutting edge. Today, we have photorealistic 3D worlds, VR, that literally tricks your brain.
The progress has been incredible.
So Musk just says, assume any rate of improvement going forward. It doesn't even have to be fast. In a few thousand years, which is nothing in cosmic time, games will be completely indistinguishable from reality.
And since it seems like that will inevitably happen,
He concludes the odds we are in base reality, the one true original universe, are 1 in billions. Because there will be billions of simulated worlds and only one real one. It's just a numbers game.
it's a really seductive argument because we see it happening. We've lived through Pong to PlayStation 5, but
Yeah.
I want to bring in Neil deGrasse Tyson here.
Okay.
He was pretty convinced by this for a while. He said the odds were better than 50-50, but then he talked to an astrophysicist named J. Richard Gott, and it totally changed his mind.
What was Gott's argument?
It's called the bottom of the chain argument, and it is really clever. It goes like this. If a civilization can create a high-fidelity simulation,
Then the people inside that simulation should eventually be able to create their own simulation.
exactly, simulations all the way down, a nesting doll of universes. But Look
Yeah.
at us.
We can't do that.
We can't. We can make amazing video games, but we cannot create a universe simulation with truly conscious beings inside it. Not even close.
Not yet.
But that not yet is the whole point. God argues that because we can't do it, we're in one of two positions. Either we are the real base reality universe before the technology exists, or
We're the last simulation in the chain, the one at the very bottom.
yes, and that completely changes the math. It makes it much less probable that we're just one of millions in the middle. It suggests we are an edge case, which makes being in a simulation less likely.
That is actually a really strong point, unless maybe our simulators just haven't given us that tech tree option yet. Maybe we're just NPCs.
Or maybe we're just real.
Okay. But let's just, for a minute, assume I'm right. What does it mean for how we live?
It gets ethically void, is what it gets.
Well, there's the pragmatic take from the economist Robin Hanson. He speculates that if we're in a sim, the owners might delete characters that are, boring to save on resources.
So his advice is be entertaining.
Basically, a self-interested sim should try to be interesting or dramatic or praiseworthy just to avoid being deleted or turned into a background process. Live for the moment, don't save for retirement because the plug could be pulled tomorrow.
That is a terrifying way to think about your life. Dance for the overlord so they don't turn you off, but he also talked about the darker side of that. Right. He said that your motivation to, say, help the poor in a faraway country might be muted. Because you just tell yourself, there is no Ethiopia, it's just background code.
And that's the danger. A total loss of empathy.
It's moral nihilism. If you think nothing is real, then suffering isn't real. You start treating people like they're NPCs in Grand Theft Auto. It's a very dangerous path for a society to go down.
There's also the risk of just finding out. The philosopher Preston Green argued that we shouldn't even be looking for proof.
The don't tap on the glass theory.
Yes. If our scientists actually prove it, if they find that cosmic ray pattern, the creators might just see the experiment as corrupted. If the Sims know they're Sims, the data is useless, so they might just shut it down.
So your curiosity could get us all deleted. Thanks for that.
Hey, I'm just reading the research. But it's a haunting thought, isn't it? The truth might be the off switch.
I think that brings us back to the central tension here. On one side, you have the pure logic. Bostrom's trilemma is a statistical puzzle that is very hard to argue your way out of.
But on the other side, you have the physics and just the feel of the world.
Right. The universe feels too messy, too complex, too wasteful to be an efficient program. The hidden structures and the quirks of evolution, it feels natural, not designed.
So it's a stalemate. The logic says yes, the physical evidence says maybe not. But I do want to leave our listeners with one final thought that goes back to that original dream hypothesis.
Go on.
If this is a simulation and somehow you could wake up from it, would you even recognize base reality?
That's a good question.
I mean, when you wake up from a dream, the waking world makes sense to you. But if our entire consciousness was formed by the physics of the simulation, then base reality might operate on principles so alien we couldn't even comprehend them. We might be code that can only run on this machine. There's no waking up because we are the dream.
That is a lot to process. I think on that existential cliffhanger, I'm going to go enjoy a very real, very complex cup of coffee.
And I'm going to go try and be entertaining so I don't get deleted. Thanks for listening to the Ryland Report.
Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.